This segment brought to you by Kansas Soybean Commission. Progress powered by Kansas farmers.
Some of the issues that we might see after harvest comes off, that we've got some of this crop residue that's available for livestock feed. Crop residue is a phenomenal resource available, especially to our integrated feeding type operations. So the first thing I'd like to talk about is some of the risks associated with grazing crop residue. Now, that first risk that I'd really like to talk about, that unfortunately we deal with day in and day out, is acidosis. Acidosis comes from the kernel itself and the starch that's available in it. Unfortunately, we had drought, and then we had pretty severe rains through most of Kansas. And what happened with some of those severe rains and heavy winds is we have knocked down grain that's laying on the ground in some of these crop residue fields. Unfortunately, cattle, if we turn them out into some of these stubble grounds that have an immense amount of corn or sorghum grain still in the field, we can absolutely run into acidosis issues with our cattle over-consuming. But we can manage that intake through different uses of electric fencing, so we can kind of mob graze through some of these fields after harvest. The second issue I'd really like to talk about, because we have had frost, but not killing frost throughout the state, and that would be prussic acid. Okay, prussic acid toxicity can actually kill cattle. And what happens is especially with more of our sorghum and our milo type species, is we get regrowth. And those leaves, those sprouts of regrowth, carry and harbor dangerous amounts of prussic acid. And because of that, if cattle consume them, they can actually die rapidly. So what we want to do is make sure that after a killing frost, which may not happen until November, we may have to hold off turning cattle out into some of the milo stubble until about a week after the killing frost. Okay, that prussic acid will actually dissipate, go into the atmosphere, and make it safe for cattle to consume. If you ever do turn cattle out, make sure that we feed them up with hay or whatever ration that they're on already, that we can get them full so they don't overconsume whenever they go into some of these stubble fields. The last thing I'd like to talk about a little bit, you know, we've talked about prussic acid, we've talked about acidosis. What about molds? We've had these massive rains, we've had delayed harvests that have really set up a prime environment for some of these molds and some of these toxin-producing molds in the standing fields of either sorghum or corn. This is where feed testing comes in. If we do have some mold issues, go and talk with your local county extension representative, and our agents can go out there and help you determine how to sample, where to sample, and where we can send those tests off to ensure that the feed stuff, that the feed resource that we're going to utilize is as safe as possible for our cattle.
Closed captioning brought to you by Ag Promo Source. Together we grow. Learn more at agpromosource.com.